All right, everybody, what's going on? How y'all doing? Welcome to today's edition of SWAC Talk Show. We cover the SWAC inside and out. I am your tour guide around the SWAC Seawells, and we are going to continue our season recaps. Today is Bama State. We'll probably do Alcorn sometime next week, and we're just kind of pepper these in as we move throughout the end of the year and the start of 2025. This was the hey, this anytime you look back, man, 24 was a pretty solid year for the SWAC Talk fam. Looking forward to 2025, and I can't believe the new year is like right around the corner. So it's been an exciting year. Great SWAC football, had a great basketball season as well. So definitely looking forward to more in the future. And if you want to take this journey with us, you can hit that subscribe button to subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you can be alerted when videos drop like this one. I decided to go ahead and do it and drop it today. We also have, opportunity for hit the like button, comment and share, and hit those socials, which are Facebook and Instagram, are both Swag Talk, Twitter, Swag Talk 76. Only other thing I have, of course, we're gonna be bringing y'all Swag Smoke this week, post Christmas episode, and tomorrow I'll be dropping my basketball quote unquote preview. It's more of a look at the early season and players to look out for. So I guess you can call it like like an in season preview. Since we're not at SWAC play yet, that's really when things start to ramp up. So that'll be our focus of that show. So keep it locked. If you want to get some basketball content, keep it locked. If you're still looking for football, it's coming. We still got a lot of football to talk about. That's not going nowhere. Nowhere. Football is king. Football is almost year round now. So it's easy to have stuff to do, but I like to sprinkle basketball in there because, like I always say, basketball is my baby. So that's where we stand. So let's go ahead and jump into this recap. And basically, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a look back at my at the 2024 preview that I did. The link will be in the description for the video, and it'll also be in the end screen. So if you want to go back and look at that video, I'll look at it for the first time. You can go ahead and check it there. And we'll just kind of look at my prediction for the season, how it turned out, and I'm gonna look at some of the thoughts and questions that I had coming into the season, and we'll see how things progress. So first and foremost, the Hornets finished the season at 7-5, 5-3 in conference, finished tied with FAMU for second place. Actually, they would have slid into that third spot because FAMU beat them head to head, but they went into the final couple of weeks of the season, basically having an opportunity to work their way into a tie. They ultimately ended up dropping a couple games and falling out of the first place hunt. My prediction for the Hornets was actually 9-3, 6-2 in conference. A lot of that is buoyed on what was going on with some of the incoming players and just the expectations. A lot of people had Bama State as the preseason SWAC East champs and SWAC champs, but they had a lot of adversity, which we'll cover as we move through this preview. But that was my prediction. Obviously, I missed it by a couple of games. I had them ceiling at 11-1 because I felt like the schedule was manageable. There were no FBS games on the schedule. The two non-conference games, Central was coming in, with where the guy has been there, but a new head man permanently. And Sanford was a game that I wasn't 100% sure of, but one of those two games could have possibly been a loss. And of course, maybe if they won those games, they would have dropped like the JSU game or FAMU game or something like that, or Alcorn, because I was really high on Alcorn. But that was a way that you could work it to see them going 11-1, or 10-2, 11-1. You could have done that. My floor was actually 7-5, and that's where they finished. I'm quite sure. I said if they go 7-5, then something happened, and something happened. Basically, what happened was, and we'll start off with my offensive thoughts, and it was like offensive improvement and Andrew Body. So first and foremost, everybody comes in, gives the Hornets a big boost. Everybody is high on the Hornets, and they were the team to beat. And for a game, it looked like it could have gone that way. Ultimately, he gets injured, and things aren't quite the same after that. Um, Not only do they lose him, but they lose Shona O'Brien, who was basically the backup or the 1A, 1B type guy, whatever you want to call it. Um, bring in another kid, can't really make it happen. And ultimately, you end up with Kareem Key, who was basically a guy that played quarterback. Cannon College was a wide receiver. Got pressed into service as the starting quarterback, and actually, all things considered, did pretty well. But when you look at when you kind of take a look at where this team kind of stood um, this season offensively, I think they made some improvements. Not they weren't they weren't world beaters, and they didn't have just this tremendous offensive explosion, but they did get better. New offensive coordinator kind of helped that. When you look at how this team finished in 23, they averaged 19.1 points per game, which had put them at 11th. When you look at what they did this season, they finished sixth at 22.7. So scoring went up. That's always a plus. The total offensive numbers in 23, they were 11th at 298 yards per game, average 5 yards per play. In 24, they finished eighth at 312 yards per game and 5.6 yards per play. Again, a lot better improvement on both aspects. They scored 26 touchdowns this season. Last season they scored 29, so they actually scored fewer touchdowns, but they still had a more efficient offense than last season. Last season, their running game was abysmal at 99 yards per game with 2.8 yards per carry. This season, their running game really flourished. They finished fourth in the conference at 169 yards per game, and they averaged 4.4 yards per carry. Now, they only scored 12 touchdowns on the ground, which, is a pretty low number. They scored 13 last year, but the running game really kicked up, and we're going to talk about let's go ahead and talk about what made that kind of change for them. They ended up with a really good stable of guys to run the football. DeQuan Kinsey was a guy who really had a great season. Finished with 126 carries for 665 yards and 3 touchdowns, average 5.3 yards per carry with a long of 65. Jamari Holzclaw was a kid who had a great early portion of the season, went down in the midpoint of the season, and I couldn't return. He finished with 74 carries, 472 yards, averaged 6.4 yards per carry with 1 touchdown. Marcus Harris had 69 carries for 248 yards and 2 touchdowns. Also, AJ Gates had 46 carries for 234 yards and 5.1 yards per carry. So you see, they had multiple guys that actually were able to get it done on the ground, and that really caused that increase in the run game. They were more explosive. They were more powerful. They hit more plays. They were able to keep chains moving a little bit more and make the offense less of a liability. Even with a quarterback that was not supposed to be playing. And when you speak of that, you look at their passing game, they still finished with a really solid passing attack. They averaged 199 yards per game last season. That was fifth. And that shows you that there weren't a lot of teams who were really good throwing the ball last season. Um, this season they averaged 143 yards per game. Now that number is down, but you can honestly understand why it's down. There were some flashes, like they had a couple games in the middle stretch where they had pretty good numbers through the air, and it kind of made things look like the offense was really turning some things around. When you look at their at their offense, they ended up throwing for 338 yards against Valley. That was one of their first. That was their biggest passing game of the season, and also threw for 280 against a Grambling in a loss. The other numbers weren't so great, but they still were able to kind of make some things happen. Um, and again, when you got a guy playing quarterback who probably should not be playing quarterback at that time. That makes things that makes things kind of difficult. They ended up playing five quarterbacks. Um, you had Andrew Body and John O'Brien, who both went down in week one. James Hayes, he ended up playing in two games. He threw for 88 yards on 6-8 passing. Excuse me, 5-8 passing. Zach Sims took over, and he just had a rough go of it. 19 of 43, 44%, 194 yards, one touchdown, and one interception. He played in five games, and then Kareem Key took over after that, and going 82 of 140 for 11 touchdowns, four interceptions, 1,355 yards with a longer 84. Um, and like I said, you had the Valley game was a really good game for them through the air, and of course, when you look at how they closed out the season against Tuskegee, they threw for 331. So they hit over 300 twice, and they also had a 280-yard effort against Grambling. The the last two SWAC games of the season, they only threw for 75 yards combined. That obviously is not going to get it done. Um, that's just that's always going to shoot you in the foot, and that was teams just made it hard for them. Um, to they started throwing some things at them, and they really couldn't adjust. Um, Continuing on, with the way the offense was in the previous season, they finished 11th, giving up 39 sacks. Some of that was the offensive line, some of that was quarterbacks. This season, they actually finished first in the league. They only gave up 18 sacks, so the offensive line improved tremendously. Even like I said, even with five different guys behind center, they only gave up 18 sacks as a defense, and so that makes it better for your offense to continue to move the ball. It helps you drive the ball. It helps you, sustain some drives and not come up short. Last season they averaged 16.8 first downs per game, which was 10th, and they were sixth in third down conversion rate at 37.1, and they finished last in fourth down conversion at 25%. Looking at this season, they averaged 14.3 first downs per game, which was last. They were 10th in third down conversion rate at 32%, and fourth downs they were sixth at 45%. Some of those numbers are down, and again, I don't want to keep sounding like a broken record, so I'm not going to say it much as it is. But when you look at the way the offense was and what they went through, um, it's understandable why some things would go down, especially efficiency, because you just didn't have a consistent guy back there yet. You had guys back there who probably should not have been playing at that portion of their careers, but they were able to make it happen and survive. And when you look at one of my other keys was, can the defense continue to be great? And I have to say yes. I mean that there's no other way to put it. The defense carried a hell of a load this season, and they passed with flying colors. They finished first in scoring offense at 16 and scoring defense at 16.7 points per game. First in total defense at 265 yards per game, allowing 4.2 yards per play. Both those numbers lead the league. They finished first in rushing defense at 106.3 yards per game, and they finished second in passing defense at 159.1 yards per game. Defensively, they registered 39 sacks, which led the conference, and they had a league leading 17 interceptions, and they also recovered 10 fumbles, which gave them 27 takeaways on the season, and they forced 16 fumbles. So that defense continued to be a monster, even with the heavy workload that they had to carry. They led the league with the fewest first downs allowed at 15 per game. They were third in third down defense at 30.9%. Most years that would probably lead the conference, but you had two teams with sub 30% conversion rates on defense, and they were second in third and fourth down conversion rate at 30.8%. And so the defense did everything they could to carry the load, even with some things that kind of worked against them and really hamstrung them. When you look at the guys who got it done for them, they ended up with as a team they ended up with 8 guys on the all conference list. Um, Traquan Thomas, defensive line, he was a first team guy. Rico Dozier at linebacker. DeMarcus Cunningham, James Burgess, who is an All American as well, guy who really had a great season. Amon Scarborough, also there at safety. Um, they really they really put and also Keen Lewis also made it. So 7 of the 8 selections were defensive guys. Well, I mean, excuse me, 6 of the 8 selections were defensive guys. The other 2 guys were offensive linemen. So when you have 6 guys that make our conference on one side of the ball, that lets you know that this team was tremendous. They were third in the league. They were third in the country in sacks per game. They were third in the country in total defense. They were they were ninth in the country in rushing defense, fifth in the country in scoring defense, ninth in the league in the country in interceptions. They forced 27 turnovers, which was seventh in the country. They allowed the fewest first downs, which put them at sixth in the country in that category. They were fifth in turnover margin. Um, they were eighth in tackles for loss per game. They were seventh in passing yards allowed per game in the country, and they were 12 in fumbles recovered. So that answer is a resounding yes. The defense was able to continue to be great, and they had to be because they really had to, at a certain portion of the season, they really had to kind of be out there more than they probably would want to be. But they was always able to still get the stops they need and keep them in the games. Because once when you look at the schedule, they had one game with their top 2 quarterbacks, and they lost their game 31-24. They beat Miles the following week 24-3. They lost to Sanford 12-7 with quarterback struggles. They beat Bethune-Cookman 26-21 in a game that was probably not as close as the score. They lost to FAMU 28-13 in a game that was kind of close early, but FAMU was able to pull away. They bombed Valley 54-17. They beat Alabama A&M in the Match City Classic 27-19 in a game they led pretty comfortably. Bama A&M scored a couple late touchdowns and make it a little bit of a tighter game. They beat Alcorn 21-17. They lost to Grambling 24-23 in a game that they had an opportunity to win the game but couldn't get it done. They lost to Jackson State 16-10, and they beat Prairie View 9-6 in their final conference game. And then they closed out their season beating Tuskegee 34-6. When you look at their losses, and this is really a testament to their defense, they lost by 7, 5, 15, 1, and 6. So they really, really were able to hold teams down, and they only gave up 30 points more once. And other than that, they gave up 28 points to FAMU. Everything else was 24 or less. So the defense did their part. Offense, really had to kind of help out here and there. And they did a better job of that as the season went on. I mentioned special teams, and I think they had their moments. Obviously, the return game was solid. When you got a guy like Robert McMahon back there who can really make some things happen. But they finished. They were able to really get some big plays. That they had a kickoff return by AJ Gates in the first game of the season, and they had a punt return for a touchdown as well. So that's always going to help you as a team. They finished the season 7th in field goals, going 21-29. for 72%. And Baylor Cannon, I think he started off the season, he was 2 for 2, but Brandon Gilliam finished the season, he was 19 to 27 with a longer 49. He was 5 of 7 from 40 to 49 yards. So they really had a more consistent kicking game than they did last season. So that definitely also helped when you can get those points. When you get in field goal range, get those points and not leave those points on the field like they did a few times last season. That helped them as well. Depth, the fact that they played 5 quarterbacks and still finished with a winning record, showed that they had capable guys. A couple of backs went down early. Guys stepped in. They have guys that can. That this is a team that's solid all around, and they never really wore down. Even with the defense playing as much as they had to because the offense was kind of up and down at times. This one is kind of tough to answer because it ties into the fact that they had the issue they had offensively, and that was, can they handle the preseason pressure? We can't really say because the full Bama State unit that we all expected, we only got a game of it, and I don't even think it was, it was the full. Obviously, it wasn't the full brunt of what you would get from them. But that was the only opportunity that we had to see that team. We didn't even get to see that team play in a conference game. So I still think, like I say, finishing 7-5, when a lot of teams probably would have packed it in. I think that that kind of helped alleviate some of that stuff. And like I said, they had a pretty solid conference season. The only game that they lost that they probably shouldn't have was Grambling. Other than that, they beat everybody else that was ahead of. I mean, that was behind them. They lost to the two teams that finished either tied with them or in front of them. So I thought they still handled some things well because, like I said, even though you came into the season with one idea, and you had to deviate from that. I think they handled that adversity better than anything. So I'm gonna, I'm not even gonna really give a full answer on that one, like a yes or no, because you really can't say. Um, but I don't think they cracked on the pressure from adversity. So I think in that way they handled the pressure. Period. Not necessarily the preseason pressure. But that's gonna do it for Alabama State recap. I'd like to thank y'all for tuning in, and we'll be back tomorrow with our basketball preview, and Thursday is Swag Smoke, and we will holler at y'all, man. Like I said, I'm gonna see y'all one more time for the holidays. So y'all have a great day, and we'll catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.